Oh, I don't know how to start this one because I haven't done one in a while, but I've been doing loads of things, playing football in Geneva and all sorts of things with Powership football. But we have a new football season and there's plenty to talk about. Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, all the other teams, the ones that people don't really talk about that much, we'll talk about them too. And we'll get into it. And but yeah, looking forward to getting back into the podcast from this day forward, and we get plenty of football topics to discuss. So, but just so you know, it won't just be my voice. I'm here again with my beautiful bearded guest, Paul Shields, producer Paul is what to call him. And since we last spoke about football, things were quite rosy from a Celtic perspective. We had just won the treble. Brendan Rodgers came back in, and you're thinking, well, surely we're going to push on now. But in classic Celtic fashion, have we fucked? we have, probably like 50 odd million in the bank, and we have spent not nearly enough to replace genuine quality. And I was like, the game against, we'll just go with current events, and we'll say the game against St Johnstone at the weekend, they were playing like the way that I move when I forget to charge my wheelchair at night. Really, really, really slow, mate. Really slow. I mean, like a snail's pace, and it was genuinely one of the worst games. Going back to the Diary days, the Lennon days, all that, one of the worst games of football I've seen at Celtic Park in a long time. And that, to me, right, is the big crux of the matter. People want to talk about how we need to bring in the £20 million winger and we need to bring in quality, which is very much true. But for me, the big problem right now is the system we've got. The system we've got is not suiting the current players that we have, and it doesn't look like it's quite clicking. We've got Kegel playing as a false nine, which is the opposite of what that guy's ability is about, first of all. And we have a midfield that completely lacks space. I mean, Tumbo's a great player, O'Reilly's a good player, McGregor's a great player, but none of them have pace, and you just can't have that in modern day football. Mm-hmm. You can't have a midfield three with no pace.
This is what's concerning me. I think, I've been seeing a lot about bedwetters and fans don't know, and people making accusations of younger fans. You don't know what it was like in the 90s, and this always seems to be something that comes up. But the thing that's concerning me right now is that this is the opposite of the start that Ange... Well, it's similar to the start that Ange had, right? With a stuttering start. We had injuries, right? So it's a very similar situation, but the difference in it is that I think we could see what Ange was trying to achieve in his first game at Tynecastle. What I'm seeing through what you're calling the system of the tactics, or the way that Brendan Rodgers is setting this team up, I am not liking one bit. I think that it's very pedestrian. It's slowing the build up. It lacks intensity. It lacks aggression. And I think we're now back to a team where we're hoping that an individual is going to win a game for us. To talk about what you just said there about Saturday, it's hard. I watched the game on TV, so I wasn't in the stadium, but I think we were a goal away from beating them 4 or 5-0. We had so many chances in that first 15-20 minutes, and their goalkeeper pulled off some sublime saves. But what's concerning for me after that is that we ran out of ideas. We had nowhere to go. Once we didn't break the deadlock in that first sort of half hour, then it's back to Lennon's team where we're struggling, we're panicking, and we're throwing it's like a weird sort of juxtaposition, because we're trying so hard, but we're also not trying hard enough. And the intensity of the play, the build up, let's say the build up's so slow, the amount of times that Scales went side to the team just went side to side is incredible. I mean, it's hard to watch after having Ange for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think what made it even worse for me was I watched the Tottenham game right before the Celtic game, and you can see his system working in the Premier League, not just in the people he's coming for Scotland. You can see that system working down there as well, and you're like, oh man, don't know, man. I mean, I'm making a joke here, but it would be like the equivalent of watching your ex having sex with her new boyfriend. Like, honestly.
No, mate, see, to touch on the end thing before I forget about that, right? Like, see, even just that, because that system he has is so in touch with modern football. The way that you need to play, like, that's what Celtic fans knew this going in. They were like, his system will work in the Premier League if he gets the right players. Because even if he's got a weaker team, he knows how to implement the system with a weak squad, and you can see that with Spurs. If they go and back him, we said this. We had a video like last season where we were like, they will finish top 4, 5 at least, and I have no doubt that if they were to go out and buy a couple of quality players, there's no reason why they couldn't be right up to that, because his system is so ideal for like the modern game. You know, the fast pace, breaking the lines, forward passing, movement all the time. And that's the thing about Saturday, is like you say, side to side for ages. And honestly, after the first half hour, I turned to my brother and I said, we're not scoring here. You can just tell we're not scoring here. It just felt like they knew they had that first burst, and then we didn't score after that first burst. It was like they were panicking, they were worried. Even guys like McGregor, you'd expect him to show a bit of composure on the ball.
Could we talk about Callum McGregor? Because I don't see the same player. He's like a shadow. I don't know what's happened. I genuinely don't know how you can go for being the heart and soul of a team to being completely non-existent and anonymous. It was the same against Kilmarnock, and I don't even think he had a great game up at Pittodrie either. So we're talking like 4 games into a domestic campaign. By the way, I thought pre-season went pretty well. I thought we looked okay in pre-season, like we're building up okay. You know, we're results aren't important, but watching the team play, you're like, right. Like Callum McGregor, he's just, I don't know what has happened to him. He seems to be the antithesis of what's going on at Celtic right now. Last season, he is, you know, what I said, the heart and soul, the captain of the team. He's the driving force. And now he just seems so non-existent. And that seems to be the contrast between the team last season and this season. I'll add to that we didn't look great the last sort of 10, 15 games of last season. I think that people were out there arguing that, you know, we're not going to win the Scottish Cup final against them. People were worried about that, and you know, there are elements of the support that they overreact. But in doing that, we're comparing a team that had already wrapped up a league campaign versus a team that's in the first 4 games. Like, we should be going out there and busting our arse and busting a gut and trying. We just look so off it. It's worrying. Like, it's genuinely worrying. And I think, to agree with what you're saying, the only thing that really has changed is the management. Like, it's still Harry Kewell, John Kennedy, Gavin Stratton, still this pretty much the same squad of players, bar Jota, and who else have we lost over the summer? I don't
Starfelt.
think Starfelt's we've lost 2 of the starting 11. I think we've replaced Starfelt with somebody. I think 2 guys that are probably up to replacing them. We've not yet replaced Jota, and we'll talk about Yang in a bit, because he seems to be like the only fucking positive that I can really think about. But the only difference between that team last season and this season, barring injuries, is Brendan and Ange. And that change has been so different. I think it's freaking some, and people like myself, it's freaking me out a bit, man. Like, to watch us go back to that sort of pedestrian style slow build up. Like, aye, man, I can't think of any other word other than I'm actually concerned about the season.
I think that's totally understandable, and I've had some thoughts on this. A couple of things what you're saying there, and just where I think one of the bigger issues is, right, we talk about McGregor, we talk about last season, everybody was talking about the last 10, 15 games a wee bit more off it. But when we were struggling in those games, when we were, you know, when the passes and the play wasn't quite coming off for us, there was an intensity there to make it happen. So it was like, while the players were struggling, it was Ange and Ange's need for intensity always that pushed us through those games. And when we talk about McGregor, I think that McGregor thrived under that intensity. He thrived under the idea of we never stop and we go for it all the time. But now he's got a manager where it's like, if you're going to play that holding midfield role, McGregor, I want you Callum, like, can imagine Brendan Rodgers being like, Callum, I want you to slow the game down. Slow it down, take it easy, take more touches, take more Like, you can totally see him telling McGregor, you can almost feel that Rodgers telling McGregor to slow the game down. You can see it in his play because a guy doesn't just drop off this much. It's got to be the Rodgers is specifically telling him, I feel. And there could be different variables to this, right? There could be things going on. And the guy, it's worth pointing out as well, the guy's played a lot of football in the past few years. And he is 30 now. You know, we're not talking about a guy who's 25 here. He's 30 years old, he's played a lot of football. And midfield is a difficult role to maintain that in.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that the style of play pushed him to bring out the best in himself. And this is kind of like, Rodgers is kind of saying, let O'Reilly, let Turnbull do the work, let these guys do the work. I just want you to kind of sit back and be that safety net. And it's not working. It doesn't work for him. And then, but for me, that's just part of the issue. The bigger overall thing is something that we were worried about when we thought Rodgers, when we first heard Rodgers were coming in. The biggest concern for Celtic fans, really, when we were thinking about it, was Rodgers' ego, right? And I think we're starting to see part of the problem here. You've came in and you've got a team that are thriving. They won a treble. They clearly know that system. And if you remember in Rodgers' press conferences, there was a lot of talk about, will we keep inverted fullbacks? Will we still play that system? And he was very clear in making the point that he knows that system. He claims to have played that system at Liverpool with Emre Can and all that. He talked about that specific scenario about how in that season where Liverpool had that great success, they played inverted fullbacks. So apparently, according to his own words, he knows that system. Now, for me, what would be the smart thing to do is come in and play the system. If the board's not really giving you the players you want, which I don't think they are really.
We can talk about the board later. I think we'll go on to transfers for sure.
Yeah. Because that is, don't get me wrong, I think that is a factor in what's going on here. But I just think that if that's not happening, to look, assess a squad, and you shouldn't assess a squad and be like, I'm just going to change this for changing its sake. Why not continue with the same system, and then when that starts to fall back on your coaching expertise, fall back on the systems that you know. Changing it for the sake of changing it because you want to hasn't really worked out that well.
I think each personality, and Brendan Rodgers is a big personality.
Yeah,
and British football, I suppose we're talking about world football, aren't we?
Look, listen, he's a top quality, and sorry to go off there, but he's a top quality manager, and I don't doubt it. But I just get this feeling that when people kept talking about how great Andrew's football was, I think you could see a wee bit, even before he came back to Celtic, you could see how that kind of eat away at him a wee bit.
And I think that's natural, especially when, Brendan Rodgers is a tried and tested, proven Premier League manager. Ange Postecoglou isn't, right? So he's come back to Celtic or to Scotland with people being like, basically like, your benchmark is Ange Postecoglou, and he's like, well, wait a minute, I won 7 trophies in 3 years. I would have won 8. Did he win 8 and 3? Like, no, he won 2 trebles, and then he presided over a third at Lennon get out of the line. Like, I can understand why somebody would be like, why are you mentioning this guy's name to me? You know what I mean? And like, I'm who I am, and so. But you're right. Like, I think like people with a big personality like that, he has his own ideas, he has his own systems. He was always going to change it. I think I think me and you both said like, I hope he maintains and keeps a system going. So I don't ever think that anybody like Brendan Rodgers would ever allow themselves to be like that. I think the worrying thing for me is that he is now asking, you mentioned it earlier, he is now asking players like Kyogo, who are clearly amazing at certain ways of playing, he's trying to fit them in to his system. The baseline for me would be come in, assess the squad and play to the squad's strengths. Now, if you want to change your formation, play a 4-4-2 or a 5, whatever you want to do, the 4-2-2-2-1 or whatever formation you want to play, I think that's fine, whatever way you want to set them up in the park. But to ask a guy who's so effective on the shoulder of defenders to drop in and start to play like an Odsonne Edouard style game is ludicrous to me. Absolutely ludicrous. No matter what system you want to play, no matter what formation you want to play, surely you must play to the players that are their strengths, and I just don't see that happening. We're also seeing that happening in other places. So we've mentioned McGregor doesn't seem to be clicking in the system. Greg Taylor's not clicking in the system, I don't think. And it doesn't look to me like Dyson Maeda or Kyogo are really clicking into this system either. So
that's a lot of players.
It's a lot of players in a starting 11 for it to know to click in with. And the thing that's really annoying me is that specifically McGregor and Taylor, you don't go for being, Greg Taylor was one of our best players last season.
Arguably player this season. You know what I mean?
Like, Callum McGregor's your captain and your talisman. You don't go for that to looking really pretty poor on current performances without there being some sort of doubt in the way that Brendan Rodgers is starting to asking them to play. And I think this could be, and I don't know anything about what's going on in the background. I'm not claiming. I think what's toxic is when people start to doubt. And if you've had a system that has been so effective under Ange, and you now have for Ange's, now he inherited them as well, but Ange's background staff and a squad of players that were his, and you've come in and changed the system and it doesn't seem to be working, doubt is literally, I think, the seed of a catastrophe a season. I think once your squad and your coaching staff start to really doubt your vision for what could happen here, I don't think there's any way of getting that back. That is my real sort of like deep-seated anxiety about what I'm seeing for Celtic right now.
It's so true though, mate, because honestly, like, you can see it's one thing for the fans are going to have debates and stuff like that, but once the squad and the coaching staff are starting to doubt it, and you can kind of see that players are kind of going about the pitch being like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Dyson Maeda looks so ineffective in the system he's got. It's crazy. And see the reason why I've mentioned, because like everything he said was spot on about Rodgers coming in wanting to have his own system, because he's obviously a good manager in his own right, and we know this. But the reason why I mentioned the ego specifically is because of the individual things we're saying there, where you go, look at what he did at Leicester. He came in at Leicester. He wasn't asking Vardy to play a false nine at Leicester. Do you know what I mean? Like, he played Vardy the exact way that he should be playing Kyogo now.
Well, he actually dropped Vardy at first. I mean, Vardy didn't play for a while, and then, he needed goals. So that is, again, like, that is a worry. Mm-hmm. Because if the player doesn't fit the system, then he's not going to change the system until he's like, all right, okay, well, maybe I need to. I'm pretty sure now, you could fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that Vardy was told that he was surplus for maybe like 6 months at Leicester until he started getting games again because Brendan needed goals. Do you know what I mean?
I feel like his first, because I remember him saying something about Vardy was going to be his main man at first, and then
I could be getting that totally wrong then.
So, because what I remember his coming in being like, Vardy's going to be my main guy and all that. And that's the thing that's confusing me about it though. I thought that the experience at Leicester, where he had to play a more defensive style, would have helped him be more adaptable when it came to Scotland. And this is where I feel like, this is why I'm mentioning his ego, because I just feel as if it's a case of like, I'm going to do this my way, no matter what it takes. And because, I mean, mate, speaking about the Kyogo role, right? On Saturday night, honestly, so many balls right across the 6-yard box. Like, there was at least 5 times fizzing right across it. And last season, Kyogo would have got a hat-trick on Saturday because they'd been right in there. Like, there was so many times, mate. And it was just, there was actually great quality balls put in, but no one, like, It wasn't even in the vicinity, mate. It was nowhere near it. It was like playing at the edge of the box. So we're still giving him the same service, but we're asking him to play deeper. So no one's there.
He's playing like a different role. Now, I mean, I think like now that we've got like the sort of that's the worrying sort of aspect to it at the road. It's going to take time. Like, it's a complete change of system. It's like the press and the punditry that I heard surrounding Rangers' stuttering start to the season is that take time for the squad to click. I mean, I even heard Kenny Miller on Clyde once saying it's the manager's first few games. You're like, Kenny's been here for 9 months, mate. Like, it's not his first few games. Like, they're giving Michael Beale this sort of like benefit of the doubt. Like, it'll take time for it to click. But obviously everybody's jumping on Brendan Rodgers, and the majority of people that are jumping on Brendan Rodgers, unfortunately, are Celtic fans. So
Well, that's a big issue because we spoke about that when he was appointed. We spoke about how the reality of it is that there are Celtic fans that want Rodgers to fail because we don't like him. And you know what? He's not even like, see, for as good a manager as I can see why there are Celtic fans that still hold that, but also that's why he's held to a higher standard. He had to get off to a good start, and that's why this is becoming a very toxic sort of situation, and you can see it happening that way. Now, in the defence of Rodgers, though, I would say in the defence of him, when he got brought in, we had a full summer, no Champions League qualifiers, group stage in the bank, sold Jota for 25 million out of nowhere, and you're thinking, right, you're looking at the transfer rumours, you're hearing about us getting linked with Scott McTominay, Keane Tierney, all these top class players. Are like, let's go, like, push on. How many times as a Celtic fan have we got in this situation where you're like, see if we just took that squad and just push on a bit, just went, that classic saying of going, just go all in, and we just haven't. Once again, the board just haven't done that, mate. Once again, we just not quite went for it, and it's so frustrating because when you get a full season with no Champions League qualifiers, you bring in a top class manager, you get all the fans buzzing about that. And then it's just go out and sing quality. Stop this. See this nonsense about the club. I'm so sick of hearing about the club's so well run and there's a great structure here. Like, go out and sign some fucking players, man. Like, like what are we talking about here?
Yeah, I mean we're currently sitting at the 30th of August talking about why have we no. I mean, we've signed one starting 11, like the centre half, like the Polish centre half that we've signed for. Legia Warsaw, is it Naroki? Something, the guy's name. Terrible with names, right? He seems to be like a Carl Starfelt replacement, right? He's been brought in. But we've not signed any other players that just go immediately into your starting 11. Since I think the peak of the current Celtic squad, we've lost Aaron Moy, which I think is probably going to be a bigger loss than what anybody ever thought it was going to be, because I think he was quite an influential player in that team.
Not even in the team, just in the dressing room as well, probably.
Right, perhaps.
Very cabin experience.
Giacomakis, not been replaced. Jota, not been replaced. And then you're talking like in Carol Starfelt. Now, we've also got Cameron Carter-Vickers, the guy that was Carol Starfelt's replacement, and others injured. You're talking about like 6 or 7 of a starting 11 team. So that's, again, like, comes into the defence. But what are the club doing? Like, we need a goalkeeper. We badly need a goalkeeper. We were linked to the Croatian goalkeeper. He goes to Turkey for €4 million. Why is he not coming to Scotland? We've got Champions League football. Why is that guy not seeing Celtic as a better prospect than, where did he go, to Besiktas or something?
Yeah.
I just think that's mind-blowing to me. That is absolutely mind-blowing to me that if there isn't a problem with how they even sell the club to players that want to come here, then I think that is a prime example that they're not actually like going out there and properly pitching this club to the players that we want, because they're going elsewhere for not a lot of money.
Exactly. I mean, Turkey is one of those leagues where we should be able to compete with them. We should be like
100%.
Ryan King going there on a free, mate. Like, it's like, these are the things I'm talking about. Like, where you're getting linked with that. We got linked with that goalkeeper, right? We got linked with that goalkeeper for a reason. It means that there was some. I believe that we have been looking at these players, and like you say, there's a fundamental deep problem there where we got a top goalkeeper going to Turkey instead of us, and you're like, that should not. We didn't see if we can't. I think the biggest concern is if you can't get them when you've got Brendan Rodgers as a manager and you get Champions League football in the bag, you're never going to get them. If you can't get them now, like, it's not going to get any better from here. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is a really good. We're in a really solid position. The problem with the Celtic board and what's happening is they only make the move when their back's against the wall, and it's not really been against the wall for that long time. And the truth of the matter is, Rodgers is good enough. See, for all this like negative chat we're having, for me, he's still a good enough manager. We still have a good enough squad to just get over the line. But it shouldn't be just about getting over the line. We're going to get, if we don't, by the end of the transfer window, if we haven't brought in, like a minimum of 3 players, 3 quality players, we're going to get gubbed in that group stage as well. Like we're in for a really tough time. You know, because he's not going to adapt the system for the group stage either. Do you know what I mean? So
like, I think a big part of the negativity that we're seeing for the fans, and we're displaying a lot of it here the now, is that the expectations were risen. Ange left after talking about wanting to push on and have a good crack at the Champions League. Brendan Rodgers came in and said he wants to have a good crack at Europe. That's his whole goal, to improve the club's standing in Europe. And we have done absolutely nothing. We're a transfer window down. We have done nothing to do that. Zero. So stop talking about. See if it's no the goal. See if the goal was to maintain dominance in domestic football and see the Champions League as like, oh, it's a wee jolly. Then stop selling the club supporters some sort of dream, because that's the reason why people are disappointed. Like, I think that we've signed a few good players. Like, I think the guy home is looking like a decent player. Yang's looking like a great player, actually.
I think Jan's got something about, man. Because on Saturday, he was the one guy who thought he could make something happen here.
I mean, I think looking at what I've seen of him so far, I think he's probably as good a player on the park as Jota is. I think we've replaced Jota. But again, getting back to like, well, what's the problem then? We've got too many of the guys that were here last year that are only fitting into the system this year. I think we need to replace Diaz and Maida. It doesn't look like you're saying earlier, when it's intensity and it's fast and it's about pace, that guy will thrive. But see, when it's about slow build up, playing football, technical ability, he's not got it. He's not got it for me. I mean, he was an absolute disgrace on Saturday. He was shocking on Saturday.
It was basically a player down, mate. It was like, he just offered nothing the whole game.
I feel bad for him though. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he did not come out and say that. He said that to the press as well. He was like, he actually commented on it, like, I'm still getting used to this new manager and this new system. But why are we not? Because you thought as well, like, surely if Rodgers are going to have the audacity to come back to Celtic, it must be with some reassurances that he's going to get backed. But I'm not saying that, mate. I'm saying we've signed a few good players, but none of these players that come in feel like they've been specifically Rodgers signings, which is a big worry. And then, you know, he'll be away sooner rather than later if we keep doing this as well. So everything, you know, I said a while ago when I was talking about this whole how well Ange was doing, the thing about football that's so weird is you're one bad transfer window away from being behind again or level with them again. And that's what you're seeing here. Because at the start of the season, I'd looked to that. To move on to Rangers a little bit, I would say that you start the season, you go, Rangers look mince here. This is going to be a good season for us, right? But the reality of it is, you know, if you take your green tinted specs off for a second, right, that team was going to take a while, and they are improving. They have improved from the first couple of games, and that's quite undeniable. The PSV game, I didn't watch it, but I heard good things. And the fact of the matter is, from the Rangers, that team that I seen at the start of the season, getting a result that's not a defeat against them is a good result. I mean, they've got Rangers played the season last season. Malik Tillman on the bench for them, so they're a good team. And you know, I think that the system that Bill has will improve. So it's a question of, you know, when we're coming up to this weekend, you can see that, you know, I think one of the biggest flaws with Bill's system is the lack of width, the lack of, you know, pace that they've got in the team. But he's got a very rigid, difficult system to break down, and I think that for them will work because a lot of the players are physical and they'll barge through it and they're going to get chances because the Rangers don't have the ball most of the time, and you know, you can see that improving. So when we look at this weekend, you know, to fast forward to the big game, you know, personally, I'm looking at this and going, objectively, I'd fancy Rangers to get the result if I was to go for a team to win the game. And as a Celtic fan, I would take a draw. But just based on what I'm seeing current form-wise, but I'll say that with a couple of caveats, right? One thing is, Matt already had two really glaring chances in the first 20 minutes against St Johnstone. If you put that in, our conversation is probably different because football is fickle, you know? Mm-hmm. And if we're sitting here saying we beat St Johnstone 5-0, then we're like, we're only a couple of seconds away from it being a great season. And we could beat them 3-0 that weekend and be like, what were we even talking about last week?
Of course, John Hartson was out talking about this the other day. Did like a video on Instagram where he was like, "This is an opportunity for Celtic to really put a lot of these worries. Like we're talking about concerns. We're not talking about reality. We've been put out a cup."
And it never felt like the treble was on this year, but like even just before the season, I just didn't feel like that was going to happen for the season. And see, when it happened, there was a wee bit of like see when we got that draw against them, it felt like that was going to happen. I could kind of feel it in me.
When I seen the draw, like for the cup game, going to Kilmarnock, Rugby Park, that pitch, 2 games into Brendan Rodgers, like a new manager and stuff, I kind of thought I had a bad feeling about it. I'd
already beaten Rangers this season,
and then when I seen that they'd beat Rangers, it was like pure right. Okay, like we're in for a really tough game. It was a test that we failed, but it's no like getting put out of the Viaplay. I don't even know what it's called now. Is Viaplay even still a thing? But being put out the Viaplay Cup, like it's not really that big a concern for me in that. But the concern is just how we've went for this absolute juggernaut, like winning juggernaut, like you're saying, like we never stop, to looking so pedestrian. To go back to what we were talking about, like this Celtic team have a point to prove. Getting into this game at the weekend, I think that with the bookies they'll probably be underdogs. Like you're saying that, and I think that's a sentiment that I have seen across a lot of Celtic supporters. If we can get away with a draw, but like you're saying, football's fickle. If we win at Ibrox on Sunday, it's like, all right, wait a minute, maybe it's not quite as bad as what we thought, and maybe it's just taking a few games for the actual system to settle in. And we'll see on Sunday. But if I was betting, if somebody was like, you need to put a bet on, I would be betting a Rangers win at Ibrox on Sunday.
I mean, what is interesting about it from a Rangers perspective is I think the form of Celtic puts a wee bit more pressure on Beale and Rangers to go out and get the win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that because maybe when Rodgers came in, like you could argue that on paper, okay, everybody's going to fancy Celtic to win the league and quite comfortably probably. But now there's going to be an air of expectation in that Ibrox crowd. There's going to be an air of like, let's go and hammer this mob, man, and see if Beale doesn't deliver on that. He could, that's when their season could turn. This is the league by no means gets decided this weekend, right? But in terms of momentum for the clubs, for both clubs, are kind of at a weird sort of moment for both these clubs right now, and it'll be interesting to see, in which way the momentum swings that way. Because, like I say, if we get that kind of 20-minute spell that we got against Rangers and score one of those chances, then the whole game is different, and that's how weird football can be. So it's going to be really interesting to see. When I look at Rangers, I look at their system and I go, to me, it's quite one-dimensional, kind of obvious what they're trying to go with. And I feel like what Rodgers showed, if you go all the way back to the game, and I know different times, different squads, different quality, but we were 2 each, 10 men, Ibrox, and you could see that he made a tactical change that won us a game that day. And I could see him analysing Beale, realising he needs a result, and just, as a manager, outclassing Beale from a tactical point of view. I could see that isn't out of the realm of possibility, and I hope that's what happens, to be honest with you. But all I'm saying is, right now, I'd say I would lean towards Rangers and probably go for like a 1-0.
That's what I was going to say to you. Like, I think it's a tight game that could go either way, but I'm just from a perspective of like, if you were forced to put a bet on, I think just on the past couple of weeks, the form, like you're saying, Rangers got a positive result against PSV, who are a good team. They've won the last 2 league games after a stuttering start, and it seems to be, but form goes out the window when it comes to the Celtic, the derby games, And
also, another big factor in me believing that isn't just to do with the form, it's also to do with the fact that we have literally could have Liam Scales as in a half at Ibrox. And to me, that's a bit like, you get Carter Vickers out, you've got the centre half that we got to replace Starfelt out, so we've got unknown Ped, and we get Liam Scales, who Aberdeen didn't even really try and sign again, and he's going to play centre half for us at Ibrox. I mean, that's pretty rough. I can see like what I would be saying as a Rangers fan is right now, when we've got Carter Vickers at the team, when we've got a really weakened team, if he can't beat us, if he can't come and hammer, like beat us now, get the 3 points, then what chance have you really got?
Well, this is it. Like you said, it's early in the season, but it's a pivotal moment, and a defeat on Sunday by no means mean for Celtic that the league's gone, or doesn't mean that Rangers are going to be champions, as much as that's what we'll hear if that's what happens. But again, if we go, well, I agree with you, if we go into that game as weakened as we are currently and they can't beat us, it's a massive demoraliser for them and for the prospect of the rest of their season. We could be sitting here talking about another centre half, another striker, or whatever. We don't know what's going to happen there the next 48 hours in the transfer window, but I hope it's busy. I just hope. Unfortunately, my gut's telling me I think we'll be lucky to see 2. And whether or not their players are quality, I don't know. I don't know.
Because even like
Hope I'm wrong.
You're looking at guys like Caden Tierney going out on loan at Real Sociedad. You're like, if he's going out on loan, why are we not trying that? Surely we've got to be at least bursting the gut to try and bring him in. When you look at all the centre halves we get out, you look at all the defensive injuries. Imagine the booster we'd got if we could take Caden Tierney on loan, put him in centre half for Everton Saturday or something. But whatever days of the weekend, it's like these guys on the market that are quality players, that are affordable players that we're just not going for. And even without the Jota thing, you've got this money in the bank, but then you get an extra 25 million and you're still not doing it. It's like, what is going on here? Somebody is taking their foot right off the gas with us, and you just feel as if they're kind of banking on the fact that Rodgers is the best manager in the league and he'll come good. And I still believe that will happen, but the early signs are concerning, In terms of the overall league with Celtic and Rangers, I had some wee thoughts about different teams in terms of like how Europe is affecting your Aberdeens and Hearts of the world, and their forms are kind of dipped. And I was thinking about how, I feel like Hearts particularly have a really strong squad for the league, but maybe have a really bizarre sort of managerial situation there that still doesn't quite make sense to me what's happening there. But also Aberdeen just look like they're really desperate to qualify for Europe. And what I'm saying is, no squad at Celtic and Rangers in Scotland has the capacity to deal with both those things. So when I was looking at the league, you're looking at it and going, this might be the season for a team like a St Mirren, to pip third or fourth, something like that. And if I was supporting a team like that, I'd be like, we should be really going for this year.
Absolutely. I mean, personal opinions aside, Derek McInnes is a good manager at Kilmarnock, and I think that he could very well get that. They've already beat both Celtic and Rangers this season, which is get a draw at Tynecastle. These are good results for Kilmarnock. You're right, like a St Mirren, a Kilmarnock could absolutely get into that sort of like upper end of the top 6, because like you're saying, if Aberdeen get into the Europa League, that Sunday, Thursday schedule is grueling, and they don't have the squads. And I think we're already, like you say, we're already seeing that, like the weeks where they're having to play in Europe and then at the weekend. You see it with Celtic. You see it, we've seen it under Lennon, we've seen it under O'Neill, we've seen it under Stratton. Europe takes it out of your team, takes it out of your squad, and you need strength and depth to really cope with that. And I don't think Celtic have got it either, to be perfectly honest. Like, I am dreading the prospect, and that's horrible. I don't understand how you can go for, like you're saying, like 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, we sat here and we're like, let's see what happens over the next 4 or 5 weeks. I'm buzzing to see what happens. Been so badly let down that I'm dreading the prospect of a Champions League group stage, depending if we can get a kind draw. But I think it's a very interesting season because of the performance of like Hearts and Aberdeen in Europe, and see where if they can get in. I think is Hibs in with a shout? Did they get put out of the Conference League? Or
I think Villa hammered them, didn't they? They beat them 5-0.
Oh right, aye, was that right? So
Villa hammered them, mate.
I've been at the fringe for the last while, so I've missed out on
They
that.
didn't just hammer them. It was 5-0 going on 15, mate. It was a joke. No one that Lee Johnson guy was just a real Hibs are just like they kind of get a good manager to save their lives, man. It's a joke. It's like the guy starts off well, he speaks well, but honestly, like the highlights of what I seen for that Aston Villa game, it was. I mean, I understand the financial gap and stuff like that, but it was so embarrassing, mate. It was really embarrassing for Scottish football, and you could spin it any way you like, but it was one of those, you know, when you see like even you can try and gloss over certain things like, oh, it was like we lost 3-0 to Real Madrid, but you could go, oh, McGregor hit the bar and made a missed his chance, and it could have been different. With that game, it was like it almost was like somebody should have thrown out the white flag and be like, in the game.
They needed a towel. They needed the towel thrown on the park. I mean, that's a shame. I didn't catch any of that whatsoever. But to get back to the point that you're making, like this could be a very, very interesting season for the likes of St Mirren, for the likes of Kilmarnock, and I mean, who knows? Like Hibs might pull out the bag and get a good manager in, and they might be pushing into the top six.
I do hope so, because I think Hibs are an important club for the Premiership, and they just seem to always just be struggling. But I will say that we've got such a kind of yo-yo league this year. It's going to be really interesting to see where all the pieces fall, because it's kind of hard to tell right now. But see, just going back to that Champions League point you made about how buzzing we were like 5 or 6 weeks ago. Honestly, mate, going into the Real Madrid game, I remember being like, well, let's take them. We can take them. We can do this. We never stop and all that. We're just buzzing about it. Let's go for it. If we draw Real Madrid again, I won't be feeling that way, mate. I'd be like, man, we should just like take the 3-0 loss and forfeit that game. That's what it feels like right now. So you just hope that in the next few days they do something, because we need it. We need an injection of life, you know, back into the squad. But I think I'm really intrigued to see how everything goes, and hopefully we'll be here to see how it plays out, and hopefully it falls the way we want it to fall. But
I mean, this is football as well, mate. Like, this is what makes it good. We're sitting here talking about it. It's disappointing that we've no signed players, and the results the last couple of weeks have been disappointing, but wouldn't it be a fucking boring game if you just won every game 3-0 and you just coasted through and, oh, we need 5 players, there's the 5 players, there you go. Like, this is what makes it such an amazing game, such an amazing sport, and why so many people engage and watch it, because it is literally, it spins on a dime. Been talking like up until the game at Kilmarnock in the League Cup, people were like, Rangers are rubbish this season, Celtic are going to walk this league, and then it's like 2 games later, it's like Celtic are going to struggle this year, and we need 6 players, we need 5 players, and so it's, I mean, that we're sitting here on Wednesday. I'm going to try and get this out as quickly as I possibly can. Hopefully we can get it out tonight. We're talking about 2 days to fix a squad, and then a game on Sunday, and if it all goes positively Celtic's way, we're going to be sitting here next week. Completely different attitudes, and even I know that. You just can't help it. You just can't help the disappointment. You can't, because we're passionate and we love football, so and we want to win.
And that's the thing, though, is it comes back to that. You just don't know. You never know. But that's, like you say, mate, that's what makes it interesting. Like, what is the fun in knowing exactly how everything plays out?
I think that there's too many, and I'll probably get slaughtered for this, but there's too many Celtic fans still view the team in Ibrox as the like rubbish, you know, blah blah blah, and just can't even imagine them winning. Can't even let it come into their sphere. Oh no, there's no way. No, we can't let them beat. At the end of the day, they've spent 17 million quid. They've backed this manager. They might get it right. It's as simple as that. It's 11 players, 22 players going a field with a ball and they kick it into the back of the net. It's like nobody's got any control over that. So they, I think there's an element to the Celtic support that need to get rid of this entitlement that we're going to win everything, and that's it. And we are way better than everybody else. It's like, unfortunately, there has been, the Lennon campaign and then this campaign where we've let them gain ground on us. And that's how it goes, man.
Mate, at the end of the day, you're never entitled to win any football game. You need to go and work hard and put, leave it all on the pitch. And like, I think the minute that a fan base, the minute a team start believing that we can just turn up and win, it's just
we're in trouble.
Yeah.
We sat in this very room, mate, watching Celtic play Dundee United at the end of October, and I turned around and I said to you, we're winning nothing this season. That team, we'd watched like 75 minutes of a game. By 90 minutes, we're like buzzing, and we go in and we win a double. So I think that even though we've come in and we've made some content and we're talking about our own grievances and our own worries about this Celtic squad, which I think are all valid, and I think that people should be concerned, it's so early. It's ridiculous for people to be out there, screaming blue murder. Like, we've still got a couple of days left in this transfer window. Hopefully we get a couple of good players in, and then go and get a positive result on Sunday, and we are where we are.
Well, listen, mate, I'm excited to see how it plays out, and I'm excited to kind of have these chats throughout the season and continue growing the channel and doing it weekly. And I know I've been away for a while, but I've really enjoyed this conversation, and we're going to try and be as consistent as we can be from this point forward. I've had a lot of different personal things going on that have been very if I was here, it'd be a whole different podcast, man. But I'm back up. I'm trying again, and we're going to try and get back on it again. But this has been really enjoyable, and hopefully we'll have plenty of fun things to talk about throughout the season.